Whilst developing their kart racing game, this developer ran into a pretty big problem. How do you make it stand apart from Mario Kart? Well, let me tell you, they did come up with a pretty interesting solution. Welcome to the Worst Racing Games, the internet series where you guys suggest different racing games that you think are terrible, then I play them, review them, and rank them. So last week we played LA Rush, which honestly, I actually kind of enjoyed. Sure, it was janky, but it was a pretty fun and entertaining time. So this week I think we may be returning to form, and by form, I mean really bad games. So the Worst Racing Games wheel has bestowed upon us South Park Rally. Now, I'm pretty familiar with the newer South Park games like The Stick of Truth, The Fractured But Whole, and the other one, but I know pretty well that the earlier South Park games were not very good. So with the stage set for what could be a pretty terrible game, let's jump into the world of South Park Rally. South Park Rally released on 4 different platforms, all within the year of 2000, but all pretty much at different times. The first platform to see this magical game was the original PlayStation, which, by the way, is the version that you'll be seeing on your screen today. Then, shortly after, the Windows version followed, and then the month after that, the Nintendo 64 version, and eventually in July of 2000, the Dreamcast version trundled along as well. So this game was developed by Tantalus Interactive. Now, you may have heard of this developer before if you've been around on the channel for a while. These guys developed the handheld ports of Cars Meta National and Cars Racer-Rama. More recently, they've handled some ports for Nintendo such as Skyward Sword HD for the Switch and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, also on the Switch. The game was published by Acclaim Entertainment, and if you've been playing video games for many decades, you will probably recognize that name. Their most notable publishing works include the early Burnout games and the Turok series. Now, something to bear in mind when watching this gameplay and listening to me talk about it, apparently this game was only developed in 7 months. That's crazy, and that might explain a lot about why this game turned out the way that it did. So upon opening the game, you are greeted with the South Park theme song, which, still goes quite hard, but visually, it's of course made within the game's engine. And it's fine, it does a serviceable job, it's kind of charming to be honest with you in its own kind of janky way. And then once you move past this cutscene, you are greeted with the main menu. And I always like to look at the main menus in these videos because I think it serves as a pretty interesting first impression of a game. 9 times out of 10, if the game's gonna be bad, you can tell from the absolute dog menu design. But, contrary to that, the menu here is fine. It's alright, it's got an animated South Park in the background, with drivers occasionally soaring through. Otherwise, it's just some text that kind of jiggles about a bit. You've got Championship as your main option, Arcade as the other main option, 2-player race if you've got 2 controllers plugged in, and then options and credits. So, fairly bog standard stuff, nothing that I can really pick apart and complain about here because it serves its purpose, it reminds you that it's South Park, it's nothing particularly exciting, but it's not doing anything particularly wrong either. So I jumped into the first race as Cartman because I want you guys to respect my authority. I'm not even going to try and do the impression, it'll be so embarrassing. Anyway, the first race went pretty well once I figured out how to play. You just follow from checkpoint to checkpoint around South Park racing, there's some pretty standard power-ups, there's some boosting, and there's some obstacles to avoid such as the South Park school bus driving around, which smashed me out the way a couple of times. So, pretty much so far, fairly standard stuff, nothing I can really complain about. It plays like a standard kart racer, I'll get more into the controls a bit later on. Now, do you remember at the start of the video when I mentioned that these developers had to find a way to make this stand apart from Mario Kart? Well, let's get into that. So I'll just read you a snippet of an interview with producer Doug Yellin because they asked him about the game's strengths and what he's most proud of. And he said, producing a title that does something new with the genre has been the most taxing part of the development process. Rather than simply reproducing Mario Kart in a South Park environment, we've tried to make the humour integral to the game's design. so you find yourself completing tasks as part of the race, rather than simply racing around the same tracks again and again. Low-key, that sounds kinda shady towards Mario Kart there, Doug.
How's your classes going, Doug?
But whatever, I'll give you a free pass because you did try to do something creative. So the first task that he's talking about takes place in the second event of the championship. On this race, you have to find a trophy and then carry that trophy from checkpoint to checkpoint before you can finish the race. So if someone else is holding that trophy, you have to hurl items at them, crash into them, whatever, to get the trophy off them, and go and complete the checkpoints yourself. This one honestly is actually kind of fun. It's not too challenging, but it's not too easy at the same time. Ironically, this does take place on the same track as the first race, and I was kind of thankful for it because it meant that I'd already learnt the track so I could go and find this trophy. Now, so far so good, but from here it pretty much all went downhill. The next event takes place on a farm, and you all have developed mad cow disease, and you got to find the antidote and hold on to that antidote until your healing reaches 100%. If someone else gets it first, you all lose. This wasn't good. I don't know how else I can put it, it was just not fun. Once I restarted and just drove straight to the antidote and just avoided the AI, it was fine, but the initial run through of this went horribly wrong. But this was nothing compared to the next event. This event has probably made me crash out more than any other game I've played in this series. Oh my god, why is the map design, the event design, the AI, everything about this is just f***ing horrible. You have to assemble a bow and arrow with the bow and arrow separated on the map and shoot the other drivers. Now there is of course a tactic to this, go and find the bow, go and find the arrow, and try and get as much distance between yourself and the other racers as you can and lure them into a thin straight so that you can shoot them. However, in reality, that's incredibly hard to pull off because if you go and get one of the items, the AI will have got the other, and because they all clump up together, the chances of you being able to hit the opponent that actually has the part you need is incredibly slim. I've realised I've spent the best part of like 3 or 4 minutes just moaning about the opening cup of the game. I'm not sure if this is a controversial take or not, but I honestly think this game was probably going to be better if they had just stuck with reproducing Mario Kart in a South Park environment, like Doug didn't want to do. Anyway, so the rest of the game follows that fairly similar structure, the occasional race, and then just really stupid shit you have to complete as well. So, with that moan aside, how does the game actually play? Well, the handling is pretty much fine. If you've played any budget licensed kart racing game on the PlayStation, then you'll probably know exactly how this handles. Hold X to go, then you can hold square to kind of drift around as well, circle to reverse, and D-pad to turn. There's a button to change the viewpoint of your kart, but you can't look behind you, and that's pretty much the entire setup. It works well enough, drifting feels okay, turning feels okay without the drift, and the items that you can throw and put back behind you are not that bad and fit in with the South Park theme. For example, you can shoot Kitty at someone, or you can throw up on someone, or drop tacos and boost ahead. It's very on brand. Now, in terms of the character roster, there's a pretty good lineup of iconic South Park characters here. Of course, you've got the 4 main characters, Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny. You've also got characters like Chef, Wendy, Mr. Mackey, Mr. Garrison, and even Starvin' Marvin here. The PlayStation version also features 7 tracks, which isn't too bad because they are quite big. You got city, farm, sewers, forest, so on and so forth. The Dreamcast version has an exclusive track called Carnival, and that's pretty much it. The track designs for the most part are okay, some of them are kind of complicated and will require you to learn them in quite a lot of detail, especially for the tracks that don't really have races. Instead, they just have the events where you have to find items or do something stupid. As well as having a very good character roster and a decent lineup of tracks, both Trey Parker and Matt Stone provided some new voice lines for the game, although I'm pretty sure some of them were either just re-recordings of iconic lines already or just reused ones from the show. But apparently, outside of recording some extra voice lines, the creators didn't really have that much to do with the game's development, not like how they did on the newer South Park games. And just to give you an idea of how poorly this game was actually received, South Park Rally was the last home console South Park game until the Stick of Truth well over a decade later. Now, in terms of its visuals, I think this game does a pretty good job at capturing the South Park vibe, even if it is in a 3D environment. I always find that South Park looks a bit strange in 3D, but it does a serviceable enough job here to make it work. It's colourful, it's bright, the characters look like their characters, South Park looks like South Park, so for the most part I don't really have that much to complain about for the visuals. Another thing this game does surprisingly well is the soundtrack. The soundtrack fits in very nicely with the South Park theme. All the music sounds like it would be in the show, and that to me is a very big achievement. It's not a soundtrack that I would personally listen to in my free time, but in terms of fitting in the game, it does a really good job. It's very South Park, but at the same time it's also very kart racer as well. Now, whilst the sound and visual design of this game are pretty good in my opinion, don't let that distract you from the fact that the overall gameplay just isn't good and isn't very fun. The mission structure is just not entertaining, and some of them are just designed so badly that it actually makes me want to claw my eyes out rather than play it. It's definitely a mix of skill issue from me and the game being frustratingly designed that definitely didn't help my opinion on this game, but at the end of the day, regardless of skill issues, bad design is just bad design, you can't change that fact. Now, in terms of critical response, no version of this game reviewed particularly well. In fact, our reliable friends over at IGN, and I use the word reliable with the most sarcasm I possibly can, said this: South Park Rally is undoubtedly one of the worst racing games I have ever played. The reviewer then went on to say the humane thing to do would be to start with the horribly designed multi-level tracks and terribly frustrating control issues. Now, not to disagree with IGN, because I know that would be simply blasphemous, but the controls aren't really that bad in my opinion. I don't think they're that problematic, they're just very bog standard low budget kart racer. Maybe I've just played so many bad racing games that the control issues just kind of are numb to me, I don't really know. Anyway, all versions of the game would review pretty consistently, and on the now defunct site Game Rankings, the PlayStation version of the game held a 45 out of 100, with the N64 version holding a 43, the PC holding a 47, and Dreamcast also at 45. In terms of sales figures, South Park Rally went on to sell moderately well on the PlayStation, selling approximately 360,000 copies, and those stats are from VG Charts. Okay, so now the time has come to rank South Park Rally on our worst racing games tier list. Now, I am a fan of South Park. I'm not the biggest fan, but I have seen some episodes, and I guess half the show through TikTok with Subway Surfers on half the screen. But no amount of South Park charm and abrasive humour can change the fact that this game just f***ing sucks. It's not fun, it's not entertaining, yes it looks alright, yes it sounds alright, but what's the point in that if the game is just raging-juicingly frustrating? Now, I wouldn't say this game is deserving of the pure evil category, and it's definitely not so bad it's good, so South Park Rally, my dear friend, you are complete hot garbage. The kind of garbage so bad that I'm sure a raccoon dumpster diving wouldn't even touch you. And so that takes us to the end of our look at South Park Rally for the original PlayStation, and with it, this week's episode of Worst Racing Games. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of this game? Have you played it? Did you have it when you were younger? And if you did enjoy this game when you were younger, I'm very sorry for tearing it apart. As always, if you've got any suggestions that you want to see covered in this series, let me know. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe and tap that bell for notifications to stay up to date with my future uploads. A massive shout out to my Patreon subscribers for the continued support, and all I really have left to say is thank you and goodbye.